Welcome to a new segment of Coptic Civilization. I'm Michael Saad. This segment is about this new book, Old Cairo. I'm honored to have with me today the editor of the book, Mrs. Carolyn Ludwig, and the first co-author, Professor Gawdat Gabra, and Mr. Bruce Ludwig, who has been supporting the production of the book, both morally and financially, and as a good husband of Mrs. Carolyn Ludwig. Welcome to you all.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you so much. Professor Gawdat Gabra is Professor of Coptic Studies at Claremont Graduate University and author of so many books you can find on Amazon.com, and especially in the area of Coptic art and Coptic history and Coptic monasticism, and of course, Coptic Bible. And Mrs. Carolyn Ludwig, this is her third book. The first one, Jewels in Our Crown, Churches of Los Angeles. Her second book that she edited is The Churches of Egypt, and Professor Gawdat Gabra was also a co-author along with Dr. Gertrude van Loon, who is also a co-author of the new volume on Old Cairo. Mr. Bruce Ludwig is a trustee of the American University in Cairo and supporter of so many excavations and publications in Egypt or about Egypt in the last more than 30 years. Welcome again.
Thank you.
We will start today with the Coptic Museum section of the book, and we are fortunate to have with us the former director of the Coptic Museum in Cairo, Dr. Gawdat Gabra, who is the author of this section as we see in the photograph on the screen. I invite Dr. Gabra to reflect on these photographs and of the Coptic Museum in Cairo, which of course I encourage everyone who visits Cairo to spend time and visit. Why should I, if I have only 1 week in Cairo, Dr. Gabra, why I would spend maybe one day or 6 days of the 7 days in Cairo?
Well, if you have 1 day in Cairo only.
If you are visiting Cairo for 24 hours,
yeah, you visit
go to the Coptic Museum.
Egyptian Museum,
yeah,
and the Coptic Museum,
okay,
yeah, and the pyramids of Egypt. So you can visit because they are Coptic Museum and Egyptian Museum. They are near each other, so it is only 10 minutes by the metro. And the Coptic Museum, in fact, I am glad that you spoke about it, or you let me speak about it. My heart is in Old Cairo. My heart is in the Coptic Museum. I spent 15 years there. And I am glad that we left the Coptic Museum in a very good situation than we got it. When I came director in 1985, only 8,000 visited the museum. After 5 years, 850 visitors have seen the museum.
Thousands.
Almost
1 million.
Yeah,
per year.
Yeah, per year. After
Wow.
4 or 5 years of advertising and of also encouraging the tourism agencies in Europe and America to send people there. So this is if you visit the Coptic Museum, you do not visit it alone, or only the Coptic Museum. You visit also the churches surrounding the Coptic Museum. The Coptic Museum, in fact, is the most important place in the world that shows the greatness, the richness of the Coptic culture. Within 2 hours, in the Coptic Museum, you will appreciate the Coptic wall painting of ancient monasteries, the beautiful sculptures, wooden sculptures, stone sculptures of the Copts taken from all the churches, the metal beautiful pieces showing the great heritage, like for example this even 15th century Bible casket, 15th century Bible casket. It is beautifully decorated and written with a beautiful Coptic text showing the priceless book it protects, the Gospel of John. So even in the 15th century, after the precarious situation of the Copts in the Mamluk period, they were able to produce beautiful pieces like that. You have beautiful, I am very grateful to Dr. Zahi Hawass, who have done a great effort to restore, to renovate, to beautifully exhibit, displaying the wonderful collection of the Coptic Museum, and in a very good modern methods of exhibition and showcases, and wonderful. Nobody visits Cairo. Less than 1 year ago, I was there, and I found a group of tourists. They have 3 stars for the important places in Egypt. The pyramids of Egypt, the Egyptian museums, and the Coptic Museum is one of the most important places to visit in Cairo. Also, the building itself is a beautiful piece of architecture. A piece in the Coptic Museum feels at home because of its beautiful architecture, mashrabiyas, wooden pieces, and also nowadays we have beautiful graphic designs, modern. So you don't need a guide to visit the museum. You have beautiful pieces, and I hope that you have more pieces we can see if you have more pieces in the Coptic Museum. Yeah, for example, this one. This one is a beautifully decorated, sculptured wooden door, one of the oldest wooden doors of the Byzantine times. This is from the 5th century, and decorated with beautiful imitation of plants, of grapes, clusters of grapes and vine leaves, also representations of St. Mark and the Apostle, beautifully sculptured, and was found in the church of St. Barbara near the Coptic Museum.
If I may show that the book has, generally speaking, 1 page in text and 1 page in photography, and the photographer, Mr. Sharif Sunbul, is really fascinating in his technical expertise.
Yes.
If we may move now to the Islamic heritage section of the book, and maybe Bruce give us an idea about how these sections really inspire you, and also tell the world something about the Egyptian story of multi-religious experience.
Well, the old Cairo, the city of Fustat, is really reported to be the first truly Islamic city ever created as an Islamic city, well before the famous cities in Saudi Arabia, in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So it's extremely important for Muslims, but it's also important that in fact it is in Egypt and has been preserved in Egypt, and let's hope it continues to be preserved in Egypt. And the Amr Mosque, which is the oldest mosque built on the African continent, is just a few hundred steps from the early synagogue and the early churches. And I mean, I think it's a place where many Muslims visit all the time because of the historic part of their religion as well. And I would have, Michael, I would have to echo what Gawdat said about Dr. Zahi Hawass, but really the Antiquities Organization, for the several decades that Carolyn and I have been involved in Egypt, the Egyptian government has spent their money to help preserve a lot of the Christian churches, Christian monuments, Christian culture, which a lot of people don't know. And certainly Zahi Hawass was one who who spearheaded that because he felt that was important for the history of Egypt, because the cultural part of Egypt is steeped in Coptic history.
Now we can see in the picture the
Yeah.
aerial view, perhaps,
Yeah.
The
or
exterior,
exterior of
as it is today,
of the
mosque.
mosque today, and that was perhaps built
It's been added
after
on to
the
and
Arab
changed.
conquest.
Yeah, many times.
It is the oldest one in Egypt. Yeah.
The oldest mosque
but
in
have been
Egypt
added and
Africa.
renovated and added. Renovated.
Yeah.
Right. It is. It doesn't look anything like it did in the
Yeah,
beginning.
Yeah, and
But every pasha and every sheikh
Added.
and every president worshipped in this mosque. It's been
Yes.
very important to the history of
Right.
Egypt.
Sure, because it commemorates the name of Amr ibn al-As, the first general who came to Egypt, and also one of the Sahaba, or the people who were with the time of the Prophet of Islam.
Yes.
Yeah. So it is also politically very important. You have demonstrations coming from the Mosque of Amr. You have also prayer of the President. The President of Egypt prays in the mosque,
Yes.
in the feast of the Bayram and the
Yes,
other
yes.
feasts. Yes.
wow, this looks like an image of painting about the mosque, that's as we see in the picture.
beautiful.
Or
This is one that we found that was actually being exhibited in the Huntington Light Museum, and
Huntington Museum in Los Angeles.
Yes.
yes, and my
Oh,
daughter
wow.
called and said, you know, Mother, and it also comes from France,
Uh-huh.
as the Gurgis painting did, and it's quite beautiful.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's very beautiful picture. If we can see it in the screen.
It shows the men at prayer, but it also shows in the on the left-hand side the man that is paid to go through the souk and use incense and smoke to keep the spirits away,
Yeah,
the bad
wow.
spirits.
Yes, very interesting. Great. I would like to read a sentence from each of the three authors who wrote the preface. And from His Eminence Amba Bachomius, it reads, "All the Cairo is a wonderful microcosm of the spiritual Egypt, encompassing the country's oldest churches, oldest synagogue, and oldest mosque. And this beautifully illustrated book brings to life these great cultural treasures and the peaceful age-old coexistence of the three great faith communities they represent." Very beautiful. Did you meet His Eminence Bishop Amba Bachomius, Metropolitan Bachomius?
In the period from Pope Shenouda's death until the new Pope came in, he was the man who gave us the spiritual guidance to proceed with this book. Yes.
Okay, wow, that's great. So it's actually you got so many hundreds of people involved in the writing of this book and the production and everything. Wow,
It's a team effort. Yeah.
From the top religious leaders like Amba Bachomius, like the Grand Mufti, and His Excellence. If I may read the sentence from the Grand Mufti's book, taking the readers through this richly informative and illustrated journey, this useful book explains and illuminates in text and pictures the aesthetic and the religious importance of old Cairo. He is a very good religious leader that really comes across as a peacemaker,
He's a tolerant man.
and the reconciliation, light and darkness. These people who light candles to all of us. And then His Eminence, His Excellency Daniel Kurtzer, former U.S. Ambassador to Egypt, he says the pictures are magnificent. Each alley and byway comes alive. The scholarly articles artfully explain and envelop the history and majesty of the mosques, churches, and synagogue. Mrs. Ludwig draws the reader into the mystery and allure of Cairo. Wow, we thank you, Mrs. Ludwig, for really working hard to produce this book and the churches of Egypt, and it is really amazing. I would like to go through the more of the mosque, and this picture, Gawdat,
this is a
you can
beautiful
explain it to us?
piece. Each mosque in the world has its mihrab. Mihrab is like the niche here, and it is always directed to Mecca. If it is America, it should direct to Mecca. If in Sweden, direct to Mecca. If South Africa, this is niche. In fact, shows also the beautifully colored and beautifully elaborately done. It shows also the interaction between Coptic art and Islamic art. The niche in the mihrab is built by Copts, the same as the apse of a church, and also the minbar. The minbar also, each mosque has a minbar for the preacher and imam or preacher, and it is important to know that in all the mosques of Cairo, the beautifully decorated, inlaid, wooden minbars, they beautiful pieces of art. They also remind us with the prototype of the minbar, the pulpit in the Mosque of Saint Jeremiah at Saqqara from the 6th century. So you have interactions between Coptic art and Islamic art. The first people who built the mosque were Copts. The first architects who planned that were Copts.
Oh, interesting.
So it is good that in this book we have the three cultures together with different aspects of their the civilization of the three great communities in Egypt: the Muslim community, the Coptic community, and the Jewish community in Old Cairo. We thank you very much for all what you have done for the heritage of Egypt, Carolyn and Bruce Ludwig.
I share with Gawdat this gratitude, and this book not just excellent for reading in your before going to bed or starting conversations with between first and second generation immigrants, but also a good scholarly book. If you are a student at certain university in America, Australia, or in Egypt, and you want to prepare a term paper on art history or the history of the Copts or the history of Islam or interfaith dialogue, you go to this book and get scholarly material and bibliography that will help you conduct and research and expand. This is a good starting point for a PhD dissertation on many topics. So I see here in this image a map of Old Cairo or of the fortress. And it's a ground plan of the fortress.
1880.
It's
done.
somebody did this map.
1880, something like that. It is of
1880.
Butler.
Okay, and he published it at that time.
1880 at that time, yes.
Yeah,
Butler
yeah.
was one of the most important scholars who worked in Old Cairo and also in the churches, and also after that we had the committee of the preservation of the Arab monuments, including the churches, the mosque, the whole area of Old Cairo.
And what is this? Is the plan of Old Cairo? Is this modern or ancient?
This was done just for the book by Nicholas Warner, who did work with Peter Sheehan in their book together. And it shows, you can see where, you want to point out where the churches are.
This area?
That's where the churches and the synagogue are, within the original compound of the fortress.
Okay.
And then just to the left of that, up, that's the mosque. So you can see it's very easy to walk 5 minutes or less.
Oh, between here and there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And yes. And
this is Abu Sifain or?
No, that's a pre-century.
Yeah, this could be the area facing
that's
the...
Abu Sifain.
Yeah, facing
Right.
the
Abu Sifain.
Amra
Right.
Yeah.
mosque.
Okay.
And then there are more churches to the right of the fortress,
Here?
right in here. Those
Yeah.
are the those are the churches that are in, off-site.
So the book would be also a good travel guide.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you go to the hotel in the evening, read the book, 6th day you go to all the Cairo and visit all these wonderful places. This is the book by Peter Sheehan, and Babylon of Egypt, and very nice book. Well, we are indebted to authors and photographers and editors and supporters for their production of these treasures for humanity, because Coptic civilization is a treasure for humanity. It is not something that just for the Copts to be proud of, but it is a treasure for humanity to be responsible for, and also for the Copts to be responsible for, and to all Egyptians and all the world to study civilizations of each other so that we can understand each other's civilization, so world peace would be the final product. And right. And with this, I would like to thank our guests today for your kindness in being here today, and I'll give you a final word before we conclude.
Well,
Dr. Gabra.
Well, I thank everybody who worked and who have done an effort to produce the history and the religious heritage of all the Cairo, its churches, synagogue, and mosque, and we very much hope that these great people, Carolyn and Ludwig and Bruce Ludwig, will continue efforts to register and document and make enhance awareness of the cultures of Egypt.
Thank you very much, Gawdat. And we want to remember the American University Press and their efforts and devotion to the work that they do.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
And Michael, thank you for having a program like this that would feature this kind of thing. But you've been a supporter of ours for a long time and encouraged us, and we're very grateful for you. And this is a wonderful showcase, and I think Logos should be very thankful that you're around.
As a Copt, I really feel in debt to both of you and to Professor Gawdat Gabra and so many people who really showed goodwill and also good effort, invested good effort, good labor of love like yours, and miracles happen, for which I'm very grateful. Our viewers, thank you so much for watching us. See you next week for a new segment of Coptic Civilization. I'm Michael Saad.